All right, guys, so now we're talking about the cube root function, okay? So your steps that you need to take, okay, is step 1, okay, you isolate the radical, right? This is the radical, it looks just like this, okay? Then step 2, you want to cube both sides, okay? Cube both sides, okay? Then for step 3, you just solve for x, right? Give you about 30 seconds to copy the steps down. Okay. All right. So, example 1. All right, example 1. We have cube root of x equals 7. Okay, cube root of x equals 7. All right, well, your first step is you want to isolate the radical, right? It is already isolated on this side. Okay, there's nothing else around it or around it, right? So the way you get rid of the radical is you cube it. Then you got to, whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. All right, so that cancels out. So you're just left with x equals 7 cubed. Okay, remember all this is saying is 7 times 7 times 7. Okay, and you get 343. Okay. Pretty similar to when we used to do the square roots. Right, it's just a cube root now, it has a 3 instead of a 2. Right. Number 2. Okay, number 2, we have 2 times the cube root of x plus 6 equals -4. All right. You got to isolate the radical, right? So this is the radical. You got to isolate it. Right? Well, there's a 2 around it, so you just got to divide this whole thing by 2, divide that by 2. That cancels out, so now you're left with cube root of x plus 6. Okay? Equals -4 divided by 2 is -2. Okay? And now that you have this by itself, you can cube it. So I'm going to cube it on both sides. Okay? That gets rid of the radical, so I'm left with x plus 6 equals -8. Okay, now you got to solve for x, right? So you got to subtract 6 on both sides. So my x comes down. So x, this cancels out, equals -14. Okay, and that would be my answer. All right. Okay, we got one more example. We're done. All right. Number 3. Got the cube root of 5x minus 2 equals 3. Okay. Remember again, first step is isolate the radical. Okay. It's not isolated because you have the -2 here, or -2 here. So I got to add 2 to both sides. This comes down, so you have cube root of 5x. This cancels out, equals 5. Okay. Now your radical is isolated, so you can cube it. So cube the whole thing, cube this side, Okay, that cancels out, so you're left with 5x equals 125. Okay, and all you gotta do is solve for x now. Get it by itself. You just divide by 5 on both sides. That cancels out, you're left with x equals 25. That's your answer. Okay, if you have any questions or anything, you can just ask, email me, whatever you need to do. I'll help you out.